So we have, first of all, there's a few people in the comments, Rob, who are showing their great support for you and what a mistake it was about the Post-Gazette, and others who saw the whole thing and were pretty furious at the time. There is some question people ask, another question we often get is about sacred cows and red lines. So, all right, so, well, I'm going to just start by saying that normally I tell folks is, yeah. I mean, there's some things, not that I don't think that we shouldn't be able to draw, but whenever there's lots of, touchy subjects that you want to make sure that you're treading carefully in those arenas, partly because we are commentators, as I pointed out, but we want to be effective commentators. And to be effective, we have to engage an audience. And if we do imagery, often the problems cartoonists get into is imagery. If they would do such inflammatory imagery, we can actually lose the conversation. But I'm curious about what you guys have to say. Patrick, why don't you start?
Just agree with you. Speaking from Geneva, Switzerland, I know something about sacred cows. Cows are sacred in Switzerland. So you don't do cartoons about cows, never. You don't do that. That's for one. And then, of course, there are taboos. They change over time. They change depending on where you work. To me, the real point is when I'm tackling any issue is, what do I have to say? What is the core of the issue, and what can I add to the issue? And there are some issues, some themes where I don't have much to add, and they can be, they can be questions. I don't know. Let's take any topic: pedophilia, for example, pedophilia scandals. What can I add with a cartoon? It's hard to do cartoons on sad news or on good news. Everything that is in between is good material for cartoonists, I guess.
Rob, what do you think, bud?
I think that does sum it up in terms of like where you work and where you live. For instance, I was visiting Russia with a friend of mine back in the 90s, and we met this 100-year-old cartoonist, Boris Yefmanovich, I think is how you say his name. I'm bastardizing it, so I apologize. But anyway, he had this stack of cartoons, and they were all amazing. And he was, renowned in the field of cartooning. He showed us a drawing where Stalin had actually put red lines and markers, marked on it, and he said, "Don't say this or this." And I was so naive. I asked the dumbest question. I said, "Did he ever do cartoons negative about Stalin?" and my friend said, "You're an idiot. He's still alive, isn't he?" So we all have red lines. We don't all share the same ones, but clearly he had a long career because he never went against that red line. I think that, I think as American cartoonists, we like to pride ourselves on thinking that, it's free speech, absolutism, in terms of like, we should be able to say everything we want to say. But as humans, we all have our own filters, and I don't like to do inflammatory images. You can't curse in a family newspaper, for instance. So my career, I had a lot of guidelines for myself, personally, and from the editors and publisher. So I think it just depends on where you are, but I do think it's our job to push the envelope. So it's the publisher and editor's job to say no. And so we've all done that, and I think that's the important thing. Now it comes down to, it's a private newspaper, right? They own it. They can publish what they want, and if they don't want that cartoon in there, they're going to say no. But I think we should always try to, push it and say what we want to say. Doesn't mean we have to be tasteless or, go overboard with something, but it is important to have that freedom.
Well, that your conversation about the Russian and American cartoonists conversing is that there's another old story joke about the Cold War, where an American cartoonist is talking to a Russian cartoonist, and where the American cartoonist says to the Russian cartoonist, says, "Look, in my country, we have freedom of expression. So that means I can draw my president whenever I want to. And the Russian guy says, oh, here in Russia, we've got exactly the same thing. We can draw your president whenever we want to. So anyway, so you're right.
Very true.
Well, yeah. And also, pertaining to that very same thing is that often a barometer in any country around the world about their freedom of expression or tolerance as a society is whether the cartoonists can draw their own head of state. And it's really a remarkable small amount of places in the world where that actually takes place.